You're listening to ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio, with your hosts Matthew C. Anderson and Joel Lindstrom.
So, hey there, Joel. How are you today, sir?
Doing well, Matthew. How are you?
I'd like to change things up in this episode and start with "That's Not Productive," if I may. Okay, so now that we've got our fancy pants theme song for "That's Not Productive," I just have to call out how that is probably one of the things that is, not the act of making that theme song is probably one of the least productive things that I've done in the recent past. And I want to bring some attention to that because, so often it's easy for a couple of guys like us to be sitting here in a podcast talking about how productive we are or things we do to be productive. And, for me, there's just sometimes where I want to be not productive sometimes and then enjoy some of that time. And we've talked about it before, but this was a pretty fun one for me. So if you wouldn't mind if we could just run that song one more time for the listening pleasure before we dive into the meat of this show.
Absolutely. It's very catchy.
All right. I love it. So
I'm imagining all the people walking down the street humming the "That's Not Productive" theme song.
I feel like it has a bit of a Tom Lehrer vibe for anybody that actually knows that reference. So get that stuck in your head.
The Elements.
That's right. Or New Math is probably one of my favorite Lehrer songs.
How about Silent E?
Nope, absolutely, man. Heading back, let's dig into the meat of this show. And there's something that I've been using the last month or so to be able to look at productivity, and it's tied to my usage of Office 365, and specifically, it's the MyAnalytics capability that's now available through Delve. Are you familiar with MyAnalytics?
I'm glad you brought this up because I've been looking at it and I just got set up with it a couple days ago, and it takes a while to become useful, and I'm still in that kind of information gathering phase. So yeah, I'm really excited to hear you talk about it because it's one of those things that looks promising, but I haven't quite wrapped my brain around exactly how I can use that to make myself more productive.
Yeah, so I won't claim to be a mega expert on this yet because it is a fairly new tool for me as well. But now that I'm a handful of weeks in, there are a few things that I'm using it for that I really appreciate. So the first piece of this is being able to set some goals for my time when it comes to the work that I'm doing. And specifically what it lets you do is you can set up a target for a certain threshold of meeting hours in a week that you don't want to exceed, or time spent on email that you don't want to exceed, or a minimum amount of time where you just have dedicated, focused time available to yourself. So it's being able to set those thresholds, and then through Delve and this kind of constant interaction, the data that's collected through Office 365, it can start to tell you how good of a job you're doing on meeting those goals. So for me, it's those ways to be more productive with the time I have. Focus hours versus meeting hours is a really big one for me. Email, we've talked about here many, many times in trying to tame the email beast. So what I've found so far is that setting those goals the first time is a little bit nebulous, to tell you the truth. I wasn't quite sure where to set some of them. So I just kind of picked a number, meeting hours, tried to keep it under 15, focus hours, I wanted to keep it over 18 for that. And then email, I'd love to have that be under 1, but I just do an hour a day for my goal there. So I set all these up, and then I can see my progress charted week to week.
Yeah. So how long did it take you for it to set up? Because it tells me come back next week.
Yeah. So it took me about a week and a half before I could start pulling up the MyAnalytics page and have anything show up for me. And then it was even another week after that before I could start to get, they have these different stories or kind of trends that it will offer to you. And those weren't showing up for me even in that first couple of weeks. It has to build up over time. But a couple of examples of things that I've seen here, it keeps track and suggests who are those people who might be kind of the time vampires in your day? How many, who are the people that you're having so many meetings with? I found that 40% of all meetings that I was in involved one other person who was either scheduling those or participating in them. And it was that trigger for me to say, you know what, probably half of those calls, I ended up starting to multitask during those, and that's not a good use of my time. It's not a good use of other people's time, but we were meeting too much on too many different things.
Yeah, that's cool. So is looking in Office at your email and your calendar, how is it actually seeing what you're doing during meetings? Is it just are other things like your computer usage or your phone usage factored in there?
Yeah, so here's what I've been able to figure out. It seems to be leveraging. Let me start out by saying I am an all Microsoft user. So I use Word, Outlook, Excel, OneNote for all those different things as my main method of getting my work done. And when I'm saving files, I'm saving them out to OneDrive. And when I'm working on email, it's going through that same Office 365 instance. So what seems to be going on is if I'm editing, say, a Word document or an Excel document while I'm in the middle of a meeting, it can see that it looks like I'm multitasking because I'm not focused on that call and I'm not just, say, taking meeting notes. And it seems to have enough intelligence around, I don't know if it's just the title of the document that I have, some of the metadata that's around it, but it's giving me that feedback saying, hey, here's how much time you were multitasking during that. One of the really obvious ones that it calls out is how much time you spent working on email while you were in meetings, because that's most of the time not going to be part of the meeting is sending an email during it. And there you can see very easily how the draft of that is being constantly saved against the Exchange server. That information is available to Office 365 Graph and ultimately Delve to be able to interpret that and give me that feedback of how often I was working on email during my meetings.
So how would you compare this to a manic time or rescue time? Do you still need tools like that, or is this sufficient for your productivity analysis?
So I'm definitely still very much a heavy user of manic time to be able to get a sense for all the different things that I'm doing during the day. The Delve MyAnalytics, especially around focus hours, those uninterrupted blocks of time where you're able to get work done. It's not giving me any feedback or detail on what I'm doing or how I'm getting it done during that time unless I have another tool to be able to help give me that information. So I'm still using it there. And an important note, meeting hours, if you say block off some time on your calendar, so just put a meeting with yourself on the calendar, that doesn't count toward meeting hours. It counts toward focus hours. So you're not getting penalized for blocking off time to be kind of under the radar.
So if you have a meeting that you don't invite anybody else to, it doesn't count that in your meeting time.
Yep.
Okay, that's cool. So right now, I don't know if you have this meeting on your work calendar or not, but basically, if you have time like this where nothing is on your work calendar, it probably doesn't count that as time spent on anything.
Right. I have this time marked off as a private appointment on my work calendar. I'm not sure how it would interpret that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've found it to be pretty interesting so far. I'll be curious to see as I have more and more time that is kind of logged in there to see what kind of trends there are. My graphs are they're weekly graphs, and they're only a few weeks long as far as being able to show week-to-week change, or is it up or is it down, or that type of thing. So,
well, I think it also show, like, if you're on an email, you can look at the MyAnalytics and see how caught up you are in email with the person that you're communicating with as well.
Yeah, so that's specific to an email thread that you have open. You can get it as a little sidebar inside of the email that you're looking at. And then that information is aggregated. If you go to the Delve page in Office 365, you can look at your overall email habits and see, what is your percent read by you, where you're either to or the CC line, or things where it's been sent to a group. How many of those are you reading? And it also gives you some information back on what's been read by others. And that seems to just be read by others within your organization. It's not doing any kind of tracking like you would with a marketing automation tool to see if people are opening it. It just seems to be within the organization.
Yeah, that's interesting. And also, doesn't it show you like how much work you're working outside of business hours too?
It most definitely does. I'm pretty proud that I've kept that down. Most days it's 0.3 hours or less of stuff going on after hours, at least in the last 2 weeks. So feeling pretty good about that.
That's great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'll report back after mine is done sifting through all my stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to hear it.
This has been ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio. You can follow Matthew C. Anderson on his blog, connectingthedata.com, where you can download his ebook about 8 essential Skype for business hacks. You can also follow him on Twitter at MC Anderson. Joel Lindstrom is on Twitter at Joel Lindstrom. Do you have any feedback for us or questions about how to be more productive? Send an email to mail@prodcast.show or leave a comment on the CRM Audio Facebook page. You can subscribe to ProdCast at prodcast.show, iTunes, or subscribe to the CRM Audio feed to get this podcast and other series from CRM Audio. This is Joel Lindstrom. Until next time, remember to stay productive.